I'm a 30-year-old guy living in the US, but this story takes me back to when I was just a teenager, about 15 years old. My older brother, Alex, who was 18 at the time, was dating a girl named Sarah. I still remember the first night this all started like it happened yesterday. The three of us were home alone, just hanging out and watching a movie in the living room. It was one of the first times I'd really spent time around Sarah, and everything seemed completely normal. She was nice enough, and we were all just chatting, eating snacks, and relaxing. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, at least not at first. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. It was the loudest, most chilling scream I'd ever experienced. But here's the thing, it wasn't a sound in the room. It wasn't coming from outside or the TV. It was in my mind. I don't know how to explain it, but I knew it wasn't something anyone else could hear. It felt like it was beamed straight into my brain. I froze for a moment, completely thrown off. My eyes darted to Alex and Sarah, trying to figure out if they'd heard it too. My face must have given away how freaked out I was because Sarah suddenly asked, "You heard it too, didn't you?" Her words stopped me cold. I nodded, hesitantly, and stammered, "Yeah. I think so. It sounded like a girl screaming." "Did you hear it?" Alex just looked at me like I was crazy and said, "No, I didn't hear anything." But Sarah had a different reaction entirely. She looked calm, almost too calm, like this wasn't a big deal to her at all. "That's a lost spirit," she said matter-of-factly, her voice steady. "She's scared and doesn't know where to go." At the time, I didn't know what to think. I was just a normal kid who liked football, hanging out with friends, and doing typical teenager stuff. Ghosts? Spirits? None of that had ever crossed my mind before. But now, suddenly, I was sitting in my own living room being told I'd just heard the voice of a dead girl. Sarah didn't stop there. She spent the next couple of hours explaining what she believed was happening. She told me she'd been dealing with spirits and strange things like this for years. Apparently, I wasn't just some random kid who heard something spooky, I was special. She said I had a strong spiritual energy, something she called an old soul. According to her, that scream was just the beginning, and things were going to get more intense. She also told me she practiced witchcraft and could communicate with spirits. She assured me that I had nothing to fear because she'd always protect me. Even though she sounded confident, her words only made me more uneasy. I didn't sleep much that night, and when I did, I kept replaying the sound of that scream in my dreams. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, like something in my life had shifted. No matter what I tried to focus on, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. A week later, things took another turn. Alex, Sarah, and I were hanging out in his room. It was a converted garage that used to belong to our grandpa before he passed away a couple of years earlier. We were just goofing off, talking about random stuff, when Sarah suddenly collapsed. Her whole body started shaking, like she was having a seizure. Her eyes rolled back, and she was mumbling something I couldn't understand. Alex was panicking, trying to figure out what to do, but I stayed calm for some reason. Sarah managed to say, through her shaking, "Put your hand on me. Help me." I didn't even think about it, I just did what she asked. I put my hand on her leg, and almost immediately, she stopped convulsing. She started breathing deeply, like she'd just come out of a nightmare. Then she looked straight at me and said, "There's something here. It's reacting to you." That night, I started to feel something else in the room. I couldn't see anything, but there was this presence, this heaviness in the air, like someone, or something, was there with us. Looking back now, I realize how significant it was that this all happened in Alex's room. It wasn't just any room, it was where my grandfather had passed away 2 years earlier. At the time, though, I didn't make that connection. After that first experience, Alex and I started spending more time together, usually drinking in his room late into the night. It was our way of bonding, but those nights weren't always light-hearted. As the alcohol flowed, the presence of the entity in the room seemed to grow stronger, almost like it thrived on the energy. Alex confided in me that Sarah had done all kinds of witchcraft rituals in that room, but he said he'd never experienced the entity talking to him directly. Still, he admitted that he always felt watched, like the thing hated him for some reason. One night, it wasn't just the two of us. Alex had invited his friend Paul over, and we were all in good spirits, laughing and drinking. Everything seemed fine, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, I felt the entity's presence, like a wave of electricity passing through the air. My stomach dropped, and before I could say anything, I noticed Paul staring off into the corner of the room where I'd felt it. His whole demeanor shifted in an instant. His fists clenched tightly, and his breathing became heavy and ragged, like he was trying to hold something back. Without thinking, I jumped up and grabbed him by the shoulders, trying to calm him down. Paul's face twisted with anger, and he suddenly started screaming at Alex, his voice raw with fury. It took a while to settle him down, but eventually, he sat back and looked confused, like he didn't know what had just come over him. Alex, still shaken, asked him, "What happened, man? Why'd you flip out like that?" Paul hesitated, then said, "I don't know. I got this overwhelming urge to hurt you. I don't know where it came from." That was when Alex and I decided to tell him everything. We explained the weird experiences we'd been having, the entity, the voices, the strange feelings. Paul listened, his face pale, but he didn't doubt us. Underscore 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 underscore. Over the next few months, the strange occurrences continued. Most of it was the same. Feeling watched, the entity's presence growing stronger during certain moments, but then there was one night that stood out. Alex had invited a group of friends over, Paul, along with two others, Frank and Kate. It was my first time meeting Frank, and I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling about him. The night started off normally enough. We were drinking and talking, but the longer Frank stayed, the darker the energy in the room seemed to get. At one point, Frank stood up abruptly and walked over to a bookshelf. There was nothing particularly odd about that, until I saw him grab a box cutter that had been lying there. Something in my gut told me this wasn't normal. His movements were stiff, almost robotic, and his expression was blank, like he wasn't really there. Without thinking, I rushed over and grabbed him from behind, locking my arms around him in a bear hug. Paul was right behind me, and together, we wrestled the knife out of Frank's hand and pinned him down. Frank stopped struggling after a moment and acted like everything was fine. "I'm okay," he said flatly, but I didn't believe him. The entity's presence was still there, and I could feel it clinging to him like a shadow. That night, we talked openly about everything that had been happening. For me, it was a strange kind of validation. 3 separate people, all unrelated to each other, had felt the same compulsion to hurt Alex. None of them knew about the entity beforehand, and yet they'd all been affected by it. It wasn't just in my head anymore, this thing was real. Underscore 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 underscore. We eventually went to bed, but we didn't sleep for long. I was jolted awake by Kate screaming. When I turned to look, I saw Frank standing over her, doing something so vile and disturbing I can barely bring myself to say it. We immediately kicked him out of the house, no questions asked. After he was gone, I'd had enough. I spoke directly to the entity, as if it were standing right in front of me. "What are you? What do you want from us?" I demanded. "I'm not scared of you. You don't have any power over me. For the first time, it answered. Its voice wasn't audible in the room, it was in my mind, the same way I'd heard that scream years earlier. I am evil, it said. I was Hitler. I am Aleister Crowley. At the time, I didn't know who Aleister Crowley was, but when I told Alex, he said, "That's that guy Led Zeppelin liked, right?" That simple comment sent me down a rabbit hole of research. The more I read about Crowley, the darker my dreams became. I started having vivid nightmares, if you could even call them that. It felt like I was astral projecting, like my soul was leaving my body and traveling to strange, horrifying places. Underscore 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 underscore. Over time, the entity's influence started to fade. Sarah had left Alex by then, cutting off all contact with us, and the activity in the house became less intense. I began to convince myself that maybe it was all in my head, a product of my imagination. But every now and then, it would come back. Between the ages of 16 and 18, I'd get drunk at house parties or with friends and suddenly lose control. I'd start hurting myself, punching walls, slamming my head into doors. It happened about 5 times over those years, but I always blamed it on the alcohol. Underscore 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 underscore. When I turned 20, I started dating someone who brought out the worst in me. She was toxic in every way, and I spiraled into depression so deep I began to think about ending it all. For 2 years, nothing paranormal happened, at least not that I noticed, but I felt like I was losing myself. Eventually, I met a coworker who was a devout Christian. He and his mother, who also worked with us, invited me to their church. I hesitated at first, but something in me told me to go. When I started praying, I felt a resistance inside me, like the entity was still there, buried deep. One day, I prayed for a sign while hiking alone. "If you're real, if you're watching me, give me a sign," I said out loud. Almost immediately, 5 birds swooped down and attacked me. Another time, I was praying in the shower when I felt that familiar dark presence. I opened my eyes and saw my girlfriend's face pressed against the glass. She looked like a demon, her features distorted and unnatural. I screamed, and she got upset, but I knew what I'd seen. Things took a strange turn one evening when I invited my girlfriend, Amanda, to hang out at my new Christian friend's house. His name was Ethan, but everyone called him Reno. We were relaxing, smoking a little weed, just trying to unwind. Out of nowhere, Reno's younger brother got agitated and snapped. He grabbed a knife and threatened Reno right there in front of us. Amanda freaked out, and I don't blame her, it was a terrifying moment. She insisted we leave immediately, and we were halfway out the door when Reno's father-in-law stopped us. His tone was cold and direct, and he looked Amanda straight in the eyes. "You're not welcome here," he said. "You've brought something dark into this home." Amanda's face went red with fury. She wasn't the kind to back down, and she started yelling at him, swearing as we left. I was angry too, not just because of what he said, but because this was supposed to be a place of acceptance. They had always preached that everyone was welcome, and now they were singling her out. I turned to Amanda in the car and said, "No, this isn't right. I need to talk to him about this." Against her protests, I went back inside. The moment I stepped through the door, Reno's priest appeared like he'd been waiting for me. His eyes locked on mine, and his voice was firm and commanding. "Leave. You're not welcome here." Before I could even respond, I felt it, a surge of electricity coursing through my body. It was like every nerve was on fire, and my legs buckled beneath me. I collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably and drenched in sweat. Reno's mother, his aunt, and the priest rushed to me, surrounding me as they started praying loudly. Their voices were a mix of desperation and authority as they commanded, "Leave this boy. You have no place in his body." That's when I felt it, the entity, the thing I hadn't encountered in years, roaring back to life. It was screaming inside me, writhing like it was being dragged out. The sensation was unbearable, like my very soul was burning. Reno's mother reached out her hands, and I swear I could feel the entity being pulled toward her, fighting every step of the way. The pain was too much. I couldn't take it anymore. In my desperation, I lied. I started crying and pretending I was cured, thanking them profusely. "You saved me," I said, my voice trembling. They believed me, or at least, they seemed to. For the next half hour, we sat together, talking and crying. They shared their faith with me, and I nodded along, pretending I felt the same peace they did. Eventually, I convinced them to let me leave. Once I was out of there, I knew I couldn't go back. I cut ties with Reno and his family completely and never saw them again. Underscore 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 underscore. The next 2 years of my life, from 22 to 24, were the darkest I'd ever experienced. Amanda and I stayed together, but the relationship was toxic, dragging me further into depression. By 23, she cheated on me, and that betrayal pushed me over the edge. I broke things off with her, but the damage was already done. I attempted to end my life, and failed. In my desperation, I made a drastic decision. I packed up and left Canberra, the only home I'd ever known, and moved in with a friend in Sydney. It was there that my life started to turn around. For the first time in years, I stopped smoking weed, a habit that had become a crutch since I was 18. I met a woman who would later become my wife. From the age of 24 onward, my life stabilized. I got a steady job, got married, and 2 years ago, we had a daughter. Life wasn't without its challenges. Our little girl was born with a genetic condition and needs a kidney transplant. I'm currently preparing to be her donor. It's a difficult journey, but I'm happy. Underscore 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 underscore. For a long time, I didn't think about the entity or those strange experiences from my teens. But over the last 2 months, something changed. I started feeling a pull back to those memories, like they were calling to me. At first, I dismissed it as nostalgia or a wandering mind, but then little things started happening, things I couldn't ignore. One day, my brother Alex invited me to a concert. I hadn't seen Paul in nearly 8 years, but he joined us that night. Just before the show, I was listening to a random podcast, and they started talking about Aleister Crowley. The timing was eerie. What were the odds of that? After the concert, Alex brought up Casey. He told me he'd been dreaming about her a lot lately, and the dreams felt so vivid it was almost like she was visiting him. He said he'd been thinking about those strange events from our teens, questioning if there was more to it than just youthful imagination and too much alcohol. Hearing him say that made me realize I wasn't alone in feeling this pull back to the past. Some of the things we experienced can't be explained away. And lately, I've felt the presence of the entity again, not strong, not like before, but there. Watching. Waiting. I don't know what to make of it, but I feel like I need to revisit those memories, to understand what really happened. Maybe by sharing this, someone out there who's experienced something similar can help me make sense of it all. Thanks for listening.